The Cat's Whiskers podcast is proudly sponsored by the Bunkers Hill Hockley. Don't miss Panthers game day offers, including Coors Light at £2.50 a pint. Good morning, it's 10:41am. We're somewhere on the A1, and this is a special Ask TCW podcast live. Hello and good morning once again. We are live in the Suzuki Swift going north on the A1.
We're in the Suzuki SX4. If you're going to name my car, get it right.
It's a Suzuki SX4 apparently, so the pedant in the front it keeps telling me it's a Suzuki Swift. Welcome to a special Ask TCW podcast live on the road. We are dependent on 4G signal, which is very strong at the moment, so this could either be a complete disaster or it could be great. We've had quite a few questions sent in, and if you would like to continue sending questions in, it's at Cat's Whiskers TV on Twitter. Mr. Balm is looking after that. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. I'm just trying to work out, how do we actually let people know the link to listen to this because we are live?
The link is live on Twitter at Cat's Whiskers TV. It will have automatically pushed there. Ain't technology wonderful? With Paul and myself are Adam Reddish.
Morning, everybody.
And also driving, so we won't try and distract her too much. It's Taylor.
Hey, Jono's got a very short memory. He can't remember the time I nearly killed him when going to Cardiff twice.
I've forgotten. I'd put that out of my mind. Anyway, we shall crack straight on. But if you would like to get in touch, as I said, at Cat's Whiskers TV.
It is up. It's
thank
worked.
you.
That's worked.
At Cat's Whiskers TV on Twitter. If you're on the road to Scotland and listening to us and would like a shout out, please do get in touch. Elaine Booker's been in touch. She's on the Panthers travel coach. So hello to all of you travelling north on Panthers travel. Well, I'm sure we will see you in Brayhead later. So we will start straight away, and our first question comes from Graham Duncan at CoolDaddy63, and he says, what do you think of the Capitals restructuring announcement? For those that don't know, the Edinburgh Capitals made a special announcement earlier this week that they are restructuring their board, bringing new people on, including fan representatives, to hopefully strengthen them for next season. So it looks like we will have an Edinburgh Capitals in the Elite League next season, which is good news. Paul, your thoughts?
Cautious optimism, I think, is probably the best way to put it. Unfortunately, we've been in a situation where we have had what essentially have been false dawns for the Capitals a few times. So whilst I welcome the news, I welcome the idea that Edinburgh will be more competitive, I think it's a bit of a wait and see for me. It's hopeful, and I hope what they're saying does come to pass, but I think we've got to wait and see a little bit.
Okay. Adam, your thoughts on it?
Pretty similar to Paul, really. I mean, it's good that the club have recognised that things are going badly awry for them at the moment, and have done for most of the season. So the question is, will that be enough for the Edinburgh fan base, or what remains of the Edinburgh fan base, to have the confidence to maybe go into next season and buy the season ticket and stay behind the club? Because whilst they brought fan representation on board, ultimately, it's not the fans that really provide the finance to go out and get reasonable level imports. So it's good that it's more democratic in that sense, but I think that it's like Paul said, it's definitely a wait and see, because it could go one of two ways. It could be a success in the sense that they have a decent season next year and they're more competitive, or if this doesn't work, then you really do have to wonder what's next for the Edinburgh Capitals.
And Tina, one of the things that the statement said is that there is going to be investment. That's all it said. It didn't say whether it was investment of time, investment of money, investment of people. But I suppose that's a positive for them, that does seem to be more people involved. trying to make it a success, but they've got a bit of a job on, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, not having the benefit of seeing any of the Capitals sort of in inverted commas glory days, if you will, sort of the Murrayfield Racers era. The only Edinburgh Capitals team I've ever known is a team that's been the whipping boys of the Elite League. So I suppose I'm really a bit more sceptical than everybody else. I mean, I seem to remember a few years ago they had a restructuring announcement of some description where they'd got some sort of team in that were going to invest in the club, and then for some reason Scott Neal chucked his dummy out because he felt like he didn't have enough control, and that all just fell by the wayside, and it was just him all alone as a one-man band again. So I'd really like to think it is going to come off, because we've said time and time again that it's the fan base that suffers the most, and they're the ones that that really they need this. They need some sort of plan forward that is going to carry them on, and is going to ensure that there is an Edinburgh Capitals team for them to go and watch. But I think we've been here before, and so I'd like to think that this board can work together and get some sort of plan going forward, get the fans back on board, get some healthy attendances and what have you. But actions speak louder than words and all the rest of those cliches. So unless they can actually all get on, all get the same plan, get on the same page, and cliche. It's just a wait and see for next season.
I thought she said she was going to be brief because she was driving.
I've not killed anybody yet, have I?
Yeah, that would be a first, wouldn't it? One of the things I want to pick up.
Not on my watch.
One of the things I want to pick up what Tina said was one of the things that I think is very positive is that they're having a fan representative on the board as well. So they can input. We're talking about the fans that suffer. Well, they've actually got somebody there to input into it. I mean, quite how much of the decision making they'll be able to make, obviously we're not going to know, but having that interaction with the fans can only be a positive thing. And I'd like to see more clubs, Neil Black, if you're listening, doing something like that. And no, I'm not putting myself forward for the job.
I think from my point of view, again, cautious optimism. What I did like about the announcement is they actually acknowledge that what is happening at the moment is not acceptable.
That was a red card.
So
And you're watching Spring March.
So from that point of view, I was really pleased to see that they acknowledge the problem. But again, it's one of those things. Actions speak louder than words, and I guess we'll find out next season if there's any change. I think the biggest thing that they've got to do is try and attract people into that Edinburgh rink, and that's not going to be an easy job. So we shall see what happens with that. But Graham, thank you very much for your question, and I think it was an inevitable one we was going to get after the announcement earlier this week. Question number 2 comes from Sam Balm at Sam Balm 9, eldest son of the gentleman sitting to my left in the back seat, and some may remember as the student on Cat's Whiskers TV. Sam simply asks, what do you think the announcement on the 27th of March will be? So, of course, Panthers putting out a video saying there will be a new era announcement on the 27th of March. I expect that will be at the awards night. So speculation has been abound. Is it the new coach? Is it a new sponsor? Or is it something completely different? Adam, we'll start with you on this one. What do you think the announcement on the 27th is all about?
Well, I'd like to think that it'd be a new coach. We've known for a while now that Corey's not going to be around for next season and beyond. And I think that the club sort of owe it to the fans to give them a reason to, shell out for their season ticket money, and just have confidence going into the off season that there is somebody in place to ensure that recruitment starts as soon as possible. The worst scenario for us is that we wouldn't announce a coach for a fair few weeks after the season had officially finished, so that gives other teams that competitive edge on recruiting the best players out there. So I really hope that the announcement next Tuesday is that of a new coach. I think if it was anything else, I wouldn't like to say that the Panthers' way of promoting it would necessarily be overly commensurate with all the fuss that it's caused on social media, because all the the videos and the gifs, etc., say a new era. Well, I mean, a new era for me really isn't a new sponsor. I think sponsors are important to the club, don't get me wrong, but something as big as the way the Panthers have portrayed it to be really has to be the coach and nothing else in my eyes.
Tina, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm of a similar opinion to Adam. I think all the fuss and fanfare, if it's anything less than the coach, I think it's doing a bit of a disservice really to the fan base. I think there are a few people who are waiting with bated breath to see what's going on before they do hit the renew button for their season tickets, and I think there might be a few people who are sort of undecided on whether to get first season tickets based on this kind of information. I think Adam's hit the nail on the head. Really, it's the amount of fuss about it. It deserves to be a coaching announcement, and again, like Adam said, if we don't recruit a coach nice and quick then this coach is not going to have the opportunity to see potentially who he might want to re-sign for next season, and sort of really start to get his teeth into the recruitment, and because if we haven't got a coach in place, then potentially we could have this situation like we did with Doucette, where the year where there was uncertainty about Corey's position then, and he was poached over by Cardiff. They nipped in, saw an opportunity, and took him while we were sort of dilly-dallying about it all. I would like to think so, and I'd like to think that if the announcement on the 27th isn't a coaching announcement, I'd like to think it's something significant. I'd also like to think that the coaching announcement would come soon afterwards, because we cannot afford to sit back on it. It's probably, at the moment, it's probably the most important signing we are going to make.
Paul, I've seen a lot of things on social media that it's about a new sponsor, speculation of the Nottingham Building Society because they are sponsoring the awards night, people putting two and two together, maybe getting 5. But can you see this much hype just for a simple title sponsor announcement? And I think a lot of people have said surely the GMB have got a few years to run on their contract anyway.
I'm not sure about the GMB thing, but I think there's always going to be speculation, and when it comes to building size, 2 and 2 plus 2 does equal 5. It's called interest. But I'll tell you something. Because I don't think it's going to be a coaching announcement, I think it's going to be something to do with the sponsor. You look at that video, and again, this is putting 2 and 2 together and getting 0.01% interest on it. You look at that video. The thing that is most prominent before you get the sort of the flash of all the trophies we've won is not the Panthers logo, it's the GMB above it. And you say that it could be, you think about when you're watching the television show, if a phone's going to ring, you'll be able to see the phone. The phone will be prominent in the shot. So are they focusing on one another, or is it just not been shot particularly? I don't know. I'll tell you something though. If we are calling it a new era for a new sponsor, then I'm sorry, but as the kids say, the team need to give their head a wobble, because no fan, all fans want is a title sponsor. 95% of them aren't going to give a monkey's who that sponsor is unless it's something bad. So the actual sponsorship, yes, is very good, but the actual sponsor, I don't think matters. So if that's the new era, then it just shows you how far wrong this club has got its priorities.
Yeah, but we don't know it is.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if that's what it is, that's what it shows you.
I personally think it'll be a new coach.
I'm happy to be proved wrong.
And as I think it'll be at the awards night, I expect the new coach will be presented to the people in attendance. We shall see. Only speculation at the moment, but something to look forward to next week, and I'm sure it will be all over Twitter as soon as it is announced. Thanks for your question, Sam, and we'll move on to number 3. This comes from Caroline Slater, and she says, does there have to be an incident in a game to spark the rivalry between Panthers and Steelers, or can it be reignited in some other way? Tina?
Well, I think we have seen that incidents in games can spark the rivalry, but I mean, I suspect this is sort of off the back of Jonathan Fernley's article. Was it last week?
Last week.
Yeah. My weeks have been merging into one. Being unemployed will do that for you. But yeah, I mean, as for the short time that I have been a Panthers fan, that there has been, a distinct slide in the intensity and indeed in the interest in the rivalry between the Panthers and Steelers. And one of the things that a lot of people have cited is sort of a lack of any characters, a lack of any genuine dislike of each other, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, we don't want to go back to the days, where we're having bench clearances every other game.
Why?
As much fun as they are, with the best will in the world, we were never going to win anything with Craig Kowalski sat in the players' box, while we're busy playing, trying to play our way through a December slump. And incidents are all well and good, but there's got to be some reason for the teams to actually genuinely hate each other again. And if I'm honest, I don't know I don't know what it's going to take, because I mean, any big incidents that are sparked in particular games, Dops are just going to wield the van hammer, and that's going to help nobody, because then you're missing players. It dents your chances in games against other people where you should be picking up points, etc., etc. So, I think because of the nature of how the game has changed, that the rivalry has changed and will probably continue to change. Proximity dictates that they are going to be our rivals, but I don't have an answer, quite frankly.
I mean, Adam, the last probably major incident between the two teams was back in the Grand Slam season, where Kelsey Wilson did the tomahawk chop on Simon Ferguson. But even that didn't really lead to much retribution as such. Yes, they had a fight in the previous game, but it was forgotten about by the previous season. Take note, Belfast fans. Can the rivalry be reignited? Because I mean, obviously we go back to the likes of when they were, I suppose, real characters in the team. Guys like Ross Lambert for Panthers, Simon Hunt for Panthers, Tim Cranston, Tommy Plummer for Steelers, and those teams hated each other, and you always knew that there was something was going to kick off in a game, because it was like a tinderbox. But can the rivalry ever get back to them levels again, do you think?
I wish they would. Don't get me wrong, I love our games with Sheffield to actually mean something and, have a really good atmosphere, hostile atmosphere. I mean, keep it on the right side of being hostile. We don't want scenes out of Slapshot at the Ice Stadium or at Sheffield's Arena. But the problem for me, and I think I'm on record as saying this throughout the course of this season and probably the last several seasons, is simply we play each other too often. I think that we've almost diluted that rivalry because of how often we play each other throughout the course of a season. And I mean, I quite honestly get bored of seeing Sheffield throughout the course of a season, and the same applies for anyone else within our own conference, just because of the number of games that we've got scheduled against them. And I think that the better way to build a rivalry, although it probably won't be practical or feasible to happen in the near future because we just don't have enough teams, is to not play Sheffield quite as often. So, the games you do get against your biggest rivals, you really look forward to, because they don't happen with the same level of frequency. And, that's the case in other sports. I know we are where we are in ice hockey because we've only got a limited pool of teams that we can sort of pick from and play fixtures against in the Elite League, but the number of games we have played against Sheffield over the years, things can't really fester because you're playing them in 2 or 3 weeks' time again. So if there has been a flashpoint on the ice, well, like Tina said, Dobbs would have handled it by that point. So the protagonists are probably sat in the stands in their suits, watching the game with a drink in their hand rather than actually being behind the bench. So it's difficult to answer. I mean, yes, a flashpoint could conceivably happen in a game. Somebody might try something like what Kelsey Wilson did or whoever, but it's going to be difficult to sort of re-stoke that rivalry because there aren't characters in the game generally anymore. You quite rightly pointed to some of the key sort of characters that have been on both sides of the fence over the years. But the players that you were mentioning go back to a time where we were playing in a very intimidating ice rink, and I think that had a lot to do with the rivalry as well. So we play out of 2 relatively soulless buildings in my opinion, and given that we play each other so often, I think that those sort of components and ingredients mean that we will never, unless something fundamentally changes, get back that rivalry that we had during the earlier days of the Steelers' existence.
Sorry, I've just got it's kind of more of a question, not for us in the car right now, but I just wanted to ask like Devils and Blaze fans.
If you're listening, at Castle Whiskers TV.
Well, if you listen, but just in general, because I'm actually interested to know. They had a pretty healthy rivalry, going on, and they've now been, they're now in opposite conferences. So has that helped? Do the Blaze and the Devils still feel the same way? Has it helped that they're playing each other less in a season? I'm just genuinely interested because as I say, they had a bit of a rivalry building between them, and I'm just wondering how the separate conferences have sort of affected that at all.
Yeah, I suppose you could also say, has the rivalry between ourselves and Blaze got any more intense with them being in a different conference this year? I'm not so sure. I suppose it doesn't help that Blaze are sort of in the more bottom reaches of the table, and I suppose they've got their own fight for a playoff place, but more on that later. Adam, you want to come in?
So, it's a very valid point that Tina's raised about the teams being in separate conferences, and it might have rekindled the rivalry just because of the lack of familiarity between the teams this season because they play each other less. But you've also got to look at the scheduling of when the fixtures take place between teams because this season, I don't know whether others have noticed, but there's been a sort of uncanny grouping of fixtures where you sort of play one team and then you get the fixtures out of the way, so you don't see them for 95% of the season. For example, both Dundee.
We didn't see them until a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we're about 80% of the way into the season before we saw Dundee. And I'm not claiming that we're rivals with Dundee by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it probably points towards more imaginative and thoughtful fixture scheduling because following on from that, we've got Guildford as well. I mean, we played Guildford twice at home.
Well, we played all of Guildford's games before Christmas.
Well, home and away. Yeah. But I can only relate to the home games because I didn't go to any of the away games with Guildford. But we saw Guildford off at home by the end of October, wasn't it? So and I just think that there's probably financial reasons and rink availability reasons why we have fixtures against other teams at certain times of the season, and obviously we're going off to a triple header in Scotland this weekend, which is great for travelling Panthers fans because it gives us a chance to have a breakaway. But we perhaps need to look at the role of when fixtures take place and when they're scheduled to try and build up some of these rivalries back to where they were around the league in general.
Well, going back to what Adam just said there, we're playing a quarter of our games against the Scottish Conference. I don't know what it's called. What is Gardner? Is it Gardner?
Gardner Conference.
In 6 days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but going back to a previous Sheffield Panthers incident from last season, we've got a name. We've got a tweet here from somebody called Helen Bullard. Any idea?
The wife.
Oh, right, yeah. He says he's missing you already, Ellen. Yeah. And she says, big, define big. I don't call people who run goalkeepers big, but there you are. John Armstrong is back for the playoff push. What do you think this will do to Steelers' chances? What, it could
increase them substantially, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going on a steamroller in run through the playoffs now. I mean, obviously, Paul Thompson will be looking at Armstrong because he's a keeper. But obviously, there's a player who, shall we say, does what is needed to win, and be it in a quarter-final or a final, and. So it can only improve their chances, I suppose.
Fantastic. Nice to see you get on a run there. So yes, going back to the rivalry question, I think it's changed. There's still a rivalry because both buildings get enormous crowds. I mean, you look at last Saturday at Sheffield Arena, there was 8,000 plus for a game against 5th against 7th.
But it's just the two names. That's all it is now. It's the team, like I don't know if you had a team there. It's just the reputation of it. It's the one people, the occasional fans look for. Oh, well, I want to go to a Panthers game. Oh, Panthers Sheffield, they're supposed to be good, so we'll go to that one. I don't think we've had much better atmospheres in with a lot fewer people this season. Because I know I keep going on about it, but a lot of people they're there. It's almost like going to the theatre for them. It's a thing to sit and watch, not a thing to sit and get involved in and be part of, which is what sport is.
But to play devil's advocate for a second, surely it's tantamount to the marketing of those games, of the fact that they are sellouts at both arenas, despite both teams having relatively poor seasons by their standards. But still, it's the fixture that everybody wants to go and see.
You're right, and they're the only Panthers games that I've ever seen advertised at the arena. They got the things over the urinals with the.
Actually, not this season. They've not.
No, but that's because they don't need to sell themselves. So I don't see why anybody's expending any sort of effort selling a game that's going to sell itself. Surely they should be putting their efforts into selling the smaller games, getting those crowd increases, and you never know, you might actually turn up and see a better game.
We will leave that one there. Thanks, Caroline, for a great question, causing a lot of discussion. Our next one comes from Graham Thompson, who most people know as @Clantastic on Twitter. Graham, of course, part of the Purple Army podcast, and he says, is all the nasty dual ownership based cynicism justified from some fan bases over tonight's game? So, for those that haven't seen it, obviously Braehead and Coventry are battling for the final playoff spot in the Elite League, and there has been some tweets, shall we say, making allegations that the Panthers may roll over for Braehead, considering that both teams are owned by the same person. So, Adam, do you think it's just cynicism? Do you think they've got a point, or do you think it's absolute rubbish?
Well, it's not ideal that you've got one owner owning two sides in a league, in any sport. But we are where we are, unfortunately, and unless someone wants to make Neil Black a very generous offer to take the Braehead clan off his hands, then we're going to see these sorts of things happen, from season to season. The conspiracy theorists are out in force this week, I note, and my natural response to that was, well, maybe your side should have put a bit more in during the course of a season and not left yourself, at the possibility of these sorts of combinations of games where you've got the same owner for two sides taking place. So I think that a lot of it's unfounded. I think that the Panthers are surely going to want to, put a decent performance in. There's going to be, several hundred of their fans in the building tonight. Professional pride surely should kick into it at some point, and they come out there and they see all the black and gold in the stands, or 250, 300 miles away from the home city, and they're going to want to put a performance in for those fans, and the same tomorrow and the same on Sunday as well. So the fact that people are saying, "Oh, we're just going to go up there, roll over, and give Brad the 2 points," I think is a bit far-fetched to say the least. Because we need the points as well. If we want to get a more favourable playoff quarter-final at the end of the regulation season, then maybe the extra 2 points that we get from tonight, as well as hopefully the other 4 points on offer this weekend, are going to stand us in good stead. And in any event, surely it pays to go into the playoff quarters in good form by winning games. So if we lose tonight, that's going to break a bit of a run. And to me, I don't think that Corey Nielsen would let that happen. I know he's in his final days and weeks as Panthers coach, but we know about Corey's professionalism, and I'm sure that he'll want to send the boys out tonight and put a good performance in. It may well be tonight that Bray just want it a bit more, because they're actually wanting the points to get into the playoffs.
Well, they have got something to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And if at the end of the 60 minutes or 65 minutes or end of the penalty shootout, Bray have beaten us, but we as fans, Panthers fans, can stand there and drink our beers and say fair play to Brad because they wanted it more. But importantly, the effort was there from Panthers. Then I've got no gripes whatsoever, and it might silence some of the people that are making those accusations about not throwing a game, but taking it slightly easier than we normally would.
Paul, I hope not. At the end of the day, I've paid £18 to watch it, and so has everybody else in there, unless the kids or OAPs. Or students. But this sort of thing is always going to get levelled at teams, particularly at this time of year when they're going to be playing each other. But again, it's down to, in a way, it's down to the fixtures. If we'd have been playing, everybody plays the same set of games, more or less. So this is just the fourth of our games against Brayhead. If you're sitting there going, oh, it's going to be fixed or this, that and the other, then perhaps your team should have done better to get it so you wouldn't be in that position. I know that's very easy to say. It's very simplistic, but everybody plays everybody else. And the teams are, we're seventh at the moment for a reason, because we're a seventh place team. So they're where they are. It's not about who owns who. I mean, have we ever seen another game where it looked as though one or the other side was throwing it? Which is essentially
certainly not against Brayhead.
No, which is what it seems we're already being accused of. But I mean, it's a no-win situation, literally. If we win, it's because Neil Black wants to see success for the team, he's put most money in, or whatever. If we lose, we lost on purpose. We can't win.
Okay. Tina, anything to add?
Just very quickly, it's a load of tosh. If we lose tonight, it's because we weren't as good as Brayhead, not because we're rolling over for them.
An additional question from Graham at the bottom of his tweet, where he says, and what are your favourite roadkill recipes? So, Adam, favourite roadkill recipe?
I don't think I've got an extensive line of knowledge in roadkill recipe, but what about, I don't know, squished hedgehog pie? I know I love hedgehogs, so
extra saving for you there, then, Adam.
Yeah, I felt quite sad about asking that, but I didn't know that question was coming until about 20 seconds.
Bit prickly and can damage the roof of your mouth. It's like eating a really hot pizza.
Apparently, what you do is you bake them in clay. This is true. You bake them in clay, and then when you crack the clay open, the spines come with it. Now, I'd say go for squirrel, because it's a very sort of stringy meat, so it tends to, it'll hold its texture even though it's been run over. Where if you're looking at your pigeon, your pheasant perhaps, that tends to break down more easily.
I must say, I'm a bit partial to badger and fox surprise. The surprise being you don't know which part of the animal you're going to get. Tina, any favourite roadkill recipes?
Unless I can do a Jeremy Clarkson on Top Gear and deliver a cow on my bonnet, I'm not interested.
I've had time to think. What about something like a Mika Weekman omelette, because he's been run over many, many times.
Oh, Adam Reddish.
Oh, that's all we've got time for today.
Adam Reddish, comedy genius. And I think that's a great place to leave that question. Thanks, Graham, and no doubt we will see you later on at the Braehead Arena. Anything on Twitter, Mr. Balm?
We've got one from Gareth at Fogey. I can't read. It's been a long day. A Flyers goal against Steelers was disallowed after goal line technology was used to identify a high stick. Use of GAOT for this purpose is prohibited by EIHL rules. What do we all think about that?
Well, how do we know?
Well,
there's no EIHL rulebook yet.
Well, no, it did say it's on the game goal line technology that it is just for if it crosses the line. It shouldn't be used for anything else. However, I do know a little bit more about this, and I have seen the footage. It was on Twitter yesterday. Toby Craig gave the goal, but Neil Wilson actually washed it off for the high stick, so the two referees disagreed. So that is why it was reviewed. And to be fair, it was a high stick. I saw it on the footage. I didn't see it straight away, but having slowed it down and watched it, there is a definite high stick. It's brought down from above shoulder height, and then the goal is scored. So it is actually the correct decision. For me, the problem is it's not in. It's like you say, it's not in the rule book. It shouldn't be reviewed. But the referees disagreed, and my personal opinion is, why shouldn't it be reviewed? If the technology's there to look at it, I don't have a problem with them actually looking at it and coming to the right decision, which is what the officials did. And I'm not going to say, well, you got the right decision against Sheffield Steelers very often, but it was the right decision. It was the fair one, and I personally don't have a problem with it.
It's also another nod to the two-man system, because if Toby Craig had been the only referee on the ice that night, that goal would have been given, and there would have been a bit of an injustice on the ice. Given, fair enough, it's against the Steelers, and
and they don't get many decisions going their way.
Of course not. But yeah, it's just another nod to the four-man system that's been long overdue.
Anyone else want to come in on that?
I disagree with that. Because the biggest problem I've got with the four referees official system is that it just becomes officiating by committee. In this situation, yes, it was probably the best thing to do, but decisions that were just a straight, the referee puts his hand up, that's it, and now you're getting 2 or 3 minutes where they stand and discuss what they should actually do, and that's not officiating. Yes, you've got to get it right, but you've also got to be decisive. And if you're standing there showing everybody that you're not, then I don't think it strengthens your position at all.
Okay. Adam, anything?
Not particularly, no. I mean, it was interesting, wasn't it, that was there an incident at the end of that game involving Mustakovs and some of the 5 fans as Mustakovs left the ice, and I don't know whether that was linked with the 5 goal that was washed out. I might be putting two completely unconnected things together and coming out with the wrong sort of answer. But I think going back to the goal line technology, yes, I mean, it's great now that we've got goal line technology. We've been crying out for it for quite a few years, and we thought we were getting it last year, and then there was a false start, but thankfully this year we've got it. But most of the time, yeah, there has been the odd notable exception to that, but I'm a fan of using technology to get the right outcome in general, and I think that pretty much chimes with what you were saying, Jono, in that whilst things might take a little bit longer to try and get the right decision, the fact that the right decision is reached is probably for the benefit of the game in general, because you can walk away from a game knowing that every borderline decision, there was a bit of discussion about it, but the right decision was arrived at. There is a pretty rainbow ahead of us.
Sorry, my bad.
Yes, thanks for that.
I thought out loud. I do apologise.
But I'd be quite keen, and I know finance would be a massive sort of factor in this, but I'd be very keen to see the use of technology, more prevalent in games generally. I know some rinks aren't really configured for that, and it'd be a struggle to pay for it financially from some teams as well. But you look at other sports where technology has been introduced, and the quality of the outcomes from debatable decisions has improved immeasurably. So it might be some years down the line for British ice hockey to introduce more technology into the games to help and assist the officials. But I think where we are at the moment, goal line technology is great, but there is that ambiguity about when goal line technology can and can't be used. But I'd agree that in terms of the 5 Sheffield situation in midweek, it was probably a good thing that the 2 referees did confer about what they saw, and it might have added a bit to the bit of time to the game length, but ultimately, as you saw, Jono, the right decision was reached, so surely that's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly, completely and utterly agree. Thanks for your question, Fogey. Moving on, and this next question comes from Tony DeMacro at T DeMacro on Twitter. No, it's DeMacro. I double checked it.
Okay.
Pipe down in the front. He says, which Brit would you like to see signed to replace David Clark next season? Doesn't have to be a like-for-like type player, but realistic. So, who wants to come in on that one first?
You're going to ask me, aren't you?
Well, there's a lot of shaking heads, so unfortunately... I could go. All right then.
Yeah, you go first.
All right then.
I haven't got a clue.
So, not necessarily like for like. I would like to see a youngster brought in and developed to get to that level. Now, that is about identifying a youngster who has the potential to get to the level of David Clark. Let's face it, players like David Clark, well, British players like David Clark don't grow on trees. He has been at the top of his game for most of his career in the Elite League. So getting a player of that level is going to be extremely difficult. As people know, I've seen quite a lot of junior hockey over the last year through my work, and I've seen a lot of very, very good youngsters who I think have the potential to be at that level. One is Michael Power, plays for Okanagan, was on a line with Jordan Kelsall at Okanagan last year, a natural goal scoring player, very, very good, naturally gifted. I would like to see him probably brought in and developed up to that level, because I think he has the potential to do it. Another one is somebody who is currently part of the Steelers apprentice scheme, that's Kieran Brown. Again, another natural goal scorer who I think has the potential to be a top goal scorer at Elite League level. So they would be the 2 I would look at. I don't think you can replace him like for like or even close straight away. I think you need to bring someone in, invest the time with them, and bring them up to that level. That would be my opinion on it at the moment. Paul,
I think you're right. I don't think we should even try to replace him like for like, similar level. And you're look at the British players to say, oh, we could just go and get Dowd or somebody. It's not realistic. British players don't tend to move about much, so it would be very difficult to then go and bring somebody in. So I think you've got to look, like you say, you've got to look to the future, because it has only just begun. And Christmas reference, and look at those players who we can bring through, who we can nurture, who we can say, come and settle in Nottingham. Come and be part of this setup. This is where this setup wants to go, and this is where we can see you going, and this is what we will do for you. And you've then got to do that to bring the players through. And at the moment, unless I'm entirely wrong, and Tuesday's announcement is about the coach, this is something that we are in a slightly worse place than other teams. Having said that, we've got a better set of resources than a lot of other teams to offer as somebody that we're bringing through.
Okay, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, the points that have been made so far, absolutely spot on. We're not in a position where we can just go out and sign a Robert Dowd or a Colin Shields, because they're so well entrenched and steeped in their own clubs at the moment, and rightfully so. They're the real sort of fan favourites, so there's not much chance of bringing in anybody on a like for like basis. So yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know the junior hockey scene as well as you, Jono, because you see infinitely more of it than I do. So I mean, my sort of thoughts are, let's look at some of the top end talent in the NIHL, and also there are good Brits plying their trade at other elite league clubs. Two young Brits that I've always been impressed with. One we've seen first hand, albeit briefly, was Jordan County, who's playing at Dundee now. This season, whenever we've played Dundee, I've always thought that he's quite an impressive young player. And also the youngster down at Milton Keynes, Lewis Hook. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just been called up into the provisional GB squad, hasn't he? Yeah. And whether he makes a cut or not, obviously that remains to be seen. But again, whenever we've played Milton Keynes this season, he stood out for me as being a really sort of energetic young forward who's prepared to go into the corners, do the dirty stuff, but he's also not afraid to get a quick shot away. So I think these are the guys, and there's probably more out there in the Elite League, albeit probably not as many as we'd like there to be, that we could perhaps be using our name, using our reputation, and as Paul said, using the fact that we are a very well financed and resourced organisation, to be going out there and saying, look, we need to sign a quality young Brit to take the place of Dave Clark. Obviously not in terms of quality, because I don't think anyone can be replaced of that quality, but to start the process of embedding them into the team and saying, right, we're going to give you maybe a 2 or 3 year or even maybe more year contract, because we want to sort of build not a team around you, but we want to show you that we're committed to you playing for the Nottingham Panthers for the next several seasons.
Yeah, I mean, that what Adam says is really the thing. It's got to be about time as well. We can't just bring somebody in and go, all right, he's the new Davy Clark. He's 19, he's the new Davy Clark, bang, get on with it. We can't do that. We've got to nurture him. If it means a year or two at a lower level, then that's what he needs. But another point Adam made very briefly there was that it's not just the Panthers that have got this problem. It's GB as well. He's been David Clark's been a stalwart of that GB setup for years now. And again, it's a big gap for anybody to fill. And they don't have the time to sit there and say, oh, we're going to nurture somebody, bring somebody through like we maybe have. That's a more immediate need. So, and we've obviously making the step up because we won the gold medal last time. So, yeah, that they are probably even bigger shoes to fill immediately.
Tina, anything to add?
Yeah, well, just to sort of enhance Paul's earlier point about the Brits and how they get well settled, it's really difficult to prize those Brits away from the teams that they're playing. They live here, they get settled, they have families, and understandably they don't want to move them around. We saw, we would. What's the opposite of recipient? We were directly affected with Matthew Myers when he got married and his wife wanted to go back to Wales, and then then there was all the fallout with the Paul Reagan debacle, and he came and played back with us for a season, but he didn't want to unsettle the missus, so he was travelling backwards and forwards. Had he sort of been properly settled, or maybe if apologies if I'm being blasphemous towards the Devils fans, but if Matthew Myers had been born in Nottingham, then you could probably have seen him staying. But I think the pull of home is very strong for some people. I mean, to sort of maybe give an answer to that question. The only British player who springs to mind who could maybe be convinced to relocate. The only, and I apologise, Bray fans, because this is going to upset you, but it's Craig Peacock. His girlfriend is based in Belfast. She's doing a commute. He's doing a commute backwards and forwards. So if he comes to Nottingham, he is well placed for East Midlands Airport, and he's still got that option open to him. So in terms of answering the actual question as it sits, then that's the only player I could see us having any sway on at all in the Elite League currently. Whether it's realistic or not is another story.
And his dad played for Nottingham.
Yes, and his dad played for Nottingham. It is difficult. It is difficult to prize Brits away from their clubs. I think that's the that's the key issue when it comes to replacing David Clarke. And I think the right way to do it is definitely going to be to nurture the young talent.
I think that there could be a bigger problem here in that I think Paul made a very valid comment about the fact that Dave Clarke was a GB stalwart for many years, and you think about some of that group, some of that core of players are now reaching their stages of their career. I know Ashley Tate is probably right at the extreme end of that, but you've got Ashley Tate, you've got Colin Shields, you've got Dave Clarke. These guys have given GB some incredible service over the last 15 years or 20 years in Ashley Tate's case. And the worry is that when these guys go, not only is it going to diminish the quality of Brit that's available in the league generally, but what sort of impact is that going to have on the national team? I know it's a bit of a tangent that I've just gone off there because we're talking about replacing Dave Clarke with a Brit. But yeah, sorry, I'm treading on Paul's toes there by going off at a tangent. But I think it's just an urgent issue that the league need to look at and address about trying to bring more Brits into the league, because obviously it's not going to be a quick fix. We can't replace quality, experienced Brits overnight, but we need to have a bit of continuity planning for how GB are going to perform in the next 5-10 years or so, because by that point Colin Shields would have retired, Dowd will be getting quite advanced in his career. And who are the Brits that are going to replace these high-profile players?
Okay, thanks for your question, Tony. Again, great discussion from that, and we shall see next season, I suppose, who will be mooted to replace David Clarke. Okay, only a couple of questions to go. This next one comes from the youngest son of the man to my left. That'll be young Joe Balm, at Joe Balm 26 on Twitter. He asks, who's the first import you'd re-sign for next season? That's obviously Panthers related. I know you've got your hand up, Tina, but I'm going to have to come to Paul first because there's a Twitter link in on this one.
I've got to answer my own son's question anyway. Come on. Basically for me it would be Evan Mosey. Basically, we've got a player there who gives everything every night, keeps trying, which is, what you will always take. I'll always take graft. Somebody who's not as skilled. I'm not saying he isn't skilled, but will graft over somebody who knows they've got all the skill in the world and thinks they can just coast on it. But just to come back, and this is something that we've had in from Ben Palmer, and he's asking, should we try and secure Mosey for next season? Well, obviously I'm saying yes. But what he's also saying is there a section of fans who are being sentimental about him? How would people react, he's saying, if he ended up in Cardiff next year, as was mooted when he returned to us? And I get what he was saying, but I would get what he was saying more from his first couple of seasons with us, where he was playing on teams that again weren't particularly great, and he sort of stood out where we didn't necessarily expect him to, especially at the beginning. And we're not going into Spinneramas or anything like that. I'm not getting into that sort of trouble again.
That was for you, Graham.
Yeah, I'm not doing that again. I didn't mean it like that. But anyway, so I mean, I don't know what do the rest of you think about that? Is it just, it's Evan Mosey, so we've got to keep him, or is he worth keeping? For me, he's a keeper.
Well, the stats.
But don't tell John Armstrong that. Well, the stats said, didn't it, that
when Mosey's been out injured this season, we've won 2 games.
Exactly.
Which shows how an
alarming stat and an alarming reliance on one man. And if he's that important, then yes, you've got to keep him.
I agree. I think Mosey, we have to try and keep him in Nottingham, because I think he provides that extra dimension with his speed. But he's skillful. He scores goals. He sets goals up. He's on the penalty kill. He's on the power play. For me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. You try and get Evan Mosey back, but we
just need him to sign on the dotted line on that gas bill again.
We certainly do. I mean, for me though, he wouldn't be the first import I'd re-sign for next season. Mine would be Jeff Brown, because I think Jeff Brown is the sort of player that every team needs. He battles, he grafts, he does the dirty jobs, he's a leader on the ice, and he comes up with the odd important goal as well. So that would be, for me, it'd be Jeff Brown. Adam?
I think I might be stealing Tina's answer here, but I'd have
it.
Eric Lindhagen back in a heartbeat, because that guy just skates for 60 minutes or 65 minutes or however long the game is. You know, the effort that you get from him is absolutely superb. You know, he's been playing on the blue line, but he's been playing as a forward, and his versatility is great, you know, pretty much like you were saying with Mosey there. But the thing is with him, he is Mr. Reliable. You know, he knows his job, whether he's playing as forward or on D. He never lets you down. You never see Eric Lindhagen make, you know, silly, casual mistakes where his concentration slipped. And, you know, I love those sorts of players, because, you know, they bring an element of professionalism to the game. And, you know, you can rely on them in all situations. And I won't go as far as saying I like to have a team full of Eric Lindhagens, because we wouldn't score many goals.
You want a team full of Brendan Brooks, that's what you want.
Well, absolutely, yeah. But, you know, Eric Lindhagen, I think his sort of philosophy of effort and competing is great, and you know, I think that rubs off on. I'd like to think that rubs off on his teammates as well. But for me, he's a valuable player of the roster.
And he hasn't missed a game in 2 seasons.
So he's an Iron Man as well.
Yeah, well, touch wood. I don't want to just, you know, playoff run and Scottish triple header and stuff.
That's what's made of plastic.
What sort of car are we in?
I'm just trying to find something that might have had traces of wood in it somewhere.
There, I've touch me notebook.
There we go. Yeah, touch wood.
Is that a euphemism?
Yeah, no, no, absolutely not. Mrs. Bullard's listening. No, yeah, but yeah, he's. I could only echo that. Yeah. Well, just talk to Paul while I think of something else.
We will break away very briefly. We've had a tweet from Sarah Louise at Sarah SARA 9217. So shout out to you, Sarah. We're already in Scotland after visiting Northumberland for the week. We can't get tickets for Brea due to the sellout. So Panthers fan Sarah Louise at SARA 9217. If anyone listening can help Sarah out, she wants tickets for tonight. It is sold out, but I'm sure there's some kind hearts out there who can help her out and get Sarah to the game. So read that out again, at Sarah SARA 9217 on Twitter, if you can help her out. So hello to you as well, Sarah, and thanks for getting in touch. So Tina, have you thought of someone?
Well, not obviously my first choice has sort of gone, but just a player.
You can have the same player.
Josh Shallow. That's fine. Yeah, let's sign him again. No, we're not in the CHL this year. No, I think not. As I say, not necessarily my first, because my first is, you know, Eric Lindhagen and he's gone. But just a player I do want to single out. And I mean, chosen. Oh dear, now who's the pedant?
Can we not say it?
But one player. One player I do want to just give a notable mention to is Luke Pither. He is running.
Yes.
He's running over a point. He's running over a point a game since he arrived. I think there's only 2 games he hasn't scored a point in since he arrived. He's not necessarily. He's obviously not the biggest player. He doesn't boss other players around or anything like that. But he's skillful. He does know where the net is, and I think he's definitely worth a punt for a full season.
I think a shout out to Mike Vascovivo as well, he's been quite Vascovivo, yes, because I think he's been excellent as well since he came in, and so yeah, lots of different answers there. Thanks for your question, Joe.
I think there's one thing that combines all of them, or one sort of common thing is that when they're on the puck, there's a certain amount of excitement.
Yeah, good point.
A lot of the time, there isn't. Mm-hmm. So, that's probably why we've picked who we have.
Mm. Okay, we're almost at an end now. So thank you very much for listening. One final question, and I think it'll be a short answer, but it's simply from Keith Stanton, who says, "Worst import ever seen." Who wants to come in on that? Because I have got two lined up. If you want me to go first.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, all right. So these two pretty poor. The one who gets mentioned quite a lot is Ian Morgan, Neil Morgan's brother, who came in under the guise that he was better than his brother and wasn't, and. He was packed off pretty quickly. And then there was another one called Marcus Adolfsson. Yeah, who was pretty dreadful. But he did have the honour of putting Rick Brabant face first into the plexi at the old Nottingham Ice Stadium, and that happened right in front of me as well, which was great to see. So, but they'd probably be the two I'd look at from my extensive recollection. I mean, Tina, you don't go back as far. Can you think of your worst import you've ever seen?
Worst import I've ever seen. I might be doing him a bit of a disservice, but Martin Toomer's got to be up there, surely.
He was just unlucky.
No, well, I don't think he was that. I don't think he was that good. I think the only thing he was good, he was really good for is if the opposition tried to check him, they'd just bounce off him. Because he was probably injure him at the same time, but he's certainly got to be in that category, I would imagine.
Adam?
Oh, this one's exercised the old grey matter. I'll probably say Jarkko Kortisauer, because
he
was a backup netminder to Jordan Willis.
Finnish kickboxing champion.
He was probably better at kickboxing than he was at ice hockey, because I saw him 3 times and he couldn't find his you-know-what with both hands. Absolutely atrocious. So, yeah, Jarkko Kortisauer. But I'd probably be able to think of about 5 or 6 others if I had a bit longer, but the spontaneity of the questions put me on the spot a bit. So I'll go with what I know.
Where did we sign Kortisauer from? Can anybody remember?
Guildford.
Was it Guildford? Apparently, and I stand to be correct with this, but apparently at their end of season awards dinner, he put on an impromptu display of his kickboxing. But I don't know. It's difficult because
there's been a few.
There's been a few really bad ones, but like the bad ones now, you could almost argue that they would be better than the good ones 30 years ago. So, what the old Kyle Hardy.
Hey! And I think that's as good a place as any to end it. Thank you very much for listening to us while we've been live on the road. Thanks for sending in questions. Thanks for getting in touch. It's been great to see so many people get in touch, and hopefully, Sarah, we've helped sort you out with some tickets for tonight. But from us, as we continue on our journey up to Scotland, as we're stopped in a lay-by on the A66 due to 4G coverage, thank you for listening, and thank you very much to our driver, Tina Taylor,
TTFN,
Adam Reddish.
Thanks, everybody.
Paul Balm.
We are never doing this again.
And thank you from me, Jono Bullard. You will be able to get this as a download a little later once we get to the hotel and I get Wi-Fi. But until then, thank you very much for listening, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.